Well, hello everyone and welcome. Happy solstice. If you are in the northern hemisphere, it is our summer solstice. And if you are in the southern hemisphere, it is your winter solstice. And so we are celebrating the shift of the season. And as we sit within this beautiful solstice energy, we're reminded about the ebb and flow of life and all of the things that are in continuous state of flux, of an ebb and a flow, of an in-breath and an out-breath, of a continuous situation of change in which we find ourselves in. And as we sit here in this solstice energy, I want to just bring back into the awareness that this process of awakening, this process of evolution is simply that. It is a process. It is a continuous process. And as we move up in vibration, there is always another level, another expression, another experience that our soul is calling us to master the essence of who we are in physical form. And this solstice energy is yet another pinpoint of consciousness and the global consciousness that we are in as divine beings of light who are here continuously pushing the boundaries and questioning and moving beyond the status quo to embody deeper and deeper truths. And then to have that embodiment then shift into expression in our outer reality. It's always a very potent energy when we sit in the solstice and of course the equinoxes. And this solstice, for some reason, seems to be once again very, very potent as we're coming on the tail end of that beautiful full moon that happened Sunday night, Monday morning. That put us in alignment with the galactic core and brought through a massive download into our matrix of light again. And I want to just pause for a moment. We talk about these downloads and upgrades and light codes and all of these things in terminology and words that we use to describe what is going on in this evolutionary process, in this ascension process, in this process to mastery. And so we had this galactic alignment with our galactic core that happened over the full moon, which allowed for a download of information to come in to assist us in this process. And when we talk about a download, we are talking about an override. So let's take it out of context for a moment and put it back into terms that we hear all the time when we download something onto our computer, our physical Mac and Dells and I can't even think of the other one, Microsoft, thank you. When we work with, I've been an Apple person for so long, I've almost forgotten the other platforms. But when we download a program, that overrides what's been there. It overrides, when we bring in a new operating system, it overrides the instructional code that is in the computer. And that is what truly happened with the full moon on Monday, Sunday night, Monday of this week. With the galactic alignment coming into this full moon, it allowed for another download. And that literally is a rewrite. And so many of you may have experienced some very interesting experiences this week, I guess, an experience of an experience. But you've been going through this integration of the download. And many of you may have had some glitches that have shown up because our higher self and the download that came in of rewriting our patterns, our belief systems, our circuitry, the way in which we move energy through our systems, got this download. And it is an overriding of a lot of things that are still being, how can I say this? The ego, which plays a significant and beautiful role in this dynamic we call life. The ego is wanting to keep things status quo. And so you may have experienced some glitches this week in the download and integration of that information, and the ego wanting to override the override, the ego wanting to put back the old program because that's the status quo and what it knows, and it's trying to keep things as they are in a form of protection. So along with this week and all the transits and everything that are going on in the cosmos, there's been a lot of things come up around our emotions, and a lot has come up around our desire to have what others have, thinking that we don't have enough. There's been a lot of triggers around jealousy, wanting what the other person has. There's been a lot of glitches coming up and patterns wanting to resurface around feeling worthy or feeling like you are able or deserving to receive what the universe is trying to bring forth for you. And so over this week, there may have been some really interesting dreams. Hopefully, a lot of this got processed in your dream state. And many of it might have shown up in your waking reality. Old patterns, old people, old triggers that have come up this week because the status quo of the ego and the old programming is trying to once again rewrite over the new download to bring back the status quo. And so as we're sitting in the solstice energy, it's a beautiful opportunity to really look at what's showed up this week, look at what your dreams have been, what patterns have shown up much more than normal, what's come back around again, because this is where the glitch is in your programming. This is where your glitch is in the matrix, if you will, of your divine matrix. And it's been downloaded with a new way of perceiving the world, a new way of operating, a new level of perception for you to move forward. And then there's this little tug of war that's going on of trying to rewrite the rewrite. And so with that information, with that knowledge, with that awareness, it's a really beautiful opportunity to hone in on what's still showing up. What are the patterns that your soul is trying to override and erase and reprogram, but the ego still is holding on to and hasn't learned how to master. And for a lot of us, the jealousy, the wanting what the other person has, never thinking we have what we really want. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. All of those metaphors are so true because it's part of the human condition. And in this solstice energy, and especially as we once again, we've had, this is really such a magnificent couple of months because we've come through that full moon and that galactic alignment and the great attractor energy starting to play a role. We've come now into the solstice energy. And again, we have just barely, 12 days before we drop into the first eclipse of the July eclipse season. And so there's a massive momentum to be able to really rewrite and allow that download that came in back to the original download of that higher frequency, although our ego and our systems have tried to bring back the old program, this opportunity between now again and as we move all the way through the second eclipse in July and then the aftermath of that, an opportunity to really clear, really allow that old programming, that old, I want to call it a virus, because for many of us, that's what it is, to really remove that off your hard drive once and for all and allow that higher self new imprint to come in. And so we want to be able to really sit in a space of stepping into the next level of our higher selves. And we have to step in from a perspective of the observer of this thing we call life. Because if we stay within the human personality and try to see the new perspective, it gets distorted very, very quickly. And so using our ability to be the observer, to step out of the human personality and the ego and come from a state of mastery, a state of our I am presence, our higher self. There's tons of vocabulary or words that you can use, but it's really the intelligence of our divine essence. And we talk about the intelligence of our divine essence, and we want that to override and come into our emotional intelligence as a human being, and to allow those two to merge and to marry within our current experience. And so we are really stepping into the next level of mastery as we move through this beautiful, once again, gateway of energy. And the solstice always sets the theme for at least the next 6 months. And quite frankly, as quickly as we're moving and the way that time has shifted, and I've talked about this a few times over the last couple of months, time is shifting. Our perception of time is shifting. The reality of being more in the now moment and what that really means to timelines. We really are imprinting not only for the next 6 months, but truly all the way through 2020, and for some even bridging and imprinting all the way to 2022. And so the ability to stay focused, the ability to be the observer, have that cosmic intelligence and emotional intelligence marry and work together in our consciousness as divine beings on the planet is really what the focus of especially this solstice and the energy that's coming through is asking us to step into, asking us to be truly conscious of, and to work from that higher perspective. So it's an exciting time, and thinking that we're really setting the stage for the next 6 months, which really in this timeline, experience, time awareness is nothing. I mean, I'm surprised we're sitting here on June 21st. Where did the year go? It's like a blink, and it's going to continue to speed up as our perceptions and energy shift. So I invite you to really ponder that and look at your patterns that are once again surfacing pretty loud and pretty clear right now. And the tug of war, if you will, or the bouncing back and forth between the divine download that came in this week and the egos wanting to rewrite back to status quo.